and come down again. So because the camera is now further away from my handle, it's a little harder for me to see the screen. I can still see the screen on the back of the monitor, but this is where adding the other accessory comes in. So on your tilt plate, we have a place to put an optional monitor. And there's enough room on here to put a monitor that is 5 inches, 5.6, up to 7 inches. You can't go too much more than that, otherwise you wind up hitting here. So the monitor that we have, stay up here, is this thin one. This is a 5.6 inch monitor. It has a 1/4-20 mount on the bottom. And I easily screw the monitor on here. The cork strip here helps prevent it from rotating sideways. I connect the video cable here, which is HDMI. My batteries will plug in right about here. So in order to make this work, I now take an HDMI cable, and this camera takes the mini HDMI, and if you look on the side of the camera, it has a place to plug in. And I plug this in here, and you can use either Velcro ties to secure your cable, which I do in a couple of places. I can either go around the plate, or if you don't have Velcro ties, the next best thing to use is tape. You can use gaffer duct tape, friction tape, or any other strong tape. Now what I do is to create a loop at the top of the cable to allow the camera to tilt and not bind the cable. If I had the cable go straight across, you can see how the cable can get caught up and not move freely. So by taking this cable and wrapping the tie around the camera plate, creating a loop that goes around the pivot point and coming down, I can now add a piece of tape around the cable to hold the cable at this point. Now I can operate the tilt, and I have enough cable here so it's not going to bind. Now all I have to do is run the cable down the pole, and I can add another piece of tape, keeping the cable taut. Make sure the tape doesn't hit the control table as you attach it. And by taking the other end, I plug the cable into the monitor. With the access cable, all you have to do is create a loop, wind up the loop a little bit, and again, I want to make sure I keep a loop of cable here as well behind the monitor. And this helps me when I'm tilting so the cable doesn't bind. And then another Velcro tie or some tape. I can now wrap this around the pole, and this adjusts my cable length. This is a 10-foot HDMI cable, which is very thin and makes it easy to operate. The heavier the cable you use, the harder it is to move while you're in the tilt mode. The 10-foot cable allows me to work with a 6-foot jib, and the cable is long enough to reach to the top and have loops on both sides. If you're only working with the 4-foot jib, then you can get a 6-foot HDMI cable, and this will work without a problem. So now you can see the monitor down here. I can watch the monitor, I can turn it on, and then turn on my camera. And so now the camera is way out at the end of the jib, and I have my shot here on the monitor. I can tilt and watch my shot, and now what you'll find is that sometimes my shot is extreme, pointing straight down or at an angle, and if you can't see the monitor because it's at a wrong angle from your camera, you can actually hold one of the two control cables, and because it's wrapped around a pulley, there's a little bit of slippage to it. So I can actually hold the cable and slip the monitor plate by keeping the camera in the same position. So if the camera is pointed out here, I can now grab the cable down here so it doesn't move, and move my monitor plate until the pulley slips under the cable. And now I can operate the camera in this position, and I can see my monitor clearly. So now I can go up here, and I'm watching my monitor from my shot. And I can easily jib down, and I'm still watching my monitor, even going into low mode. If I want to go into low shooting mode like this, I can now operate looking straight ahead and watch where I'm going and operate my tilt, and I can look at my monitor and see my shot. So I can now tilt the camera and watch what I'm shooting because of the optional monitor. This is the pole support for a Cool Jib. You can buy one of your own, or you can get one from us with this style here. Now all you have to do is put the strap around your neck or on your waist, and the straps here are adjustable, and you can change the length and have the pivot point of your jib up here, here, or even down further by extending your straps. Now this is very helpful if the system becomes too big, or especially if you're in the 6-foot jib mode, by putting the rubber tip into the cup here. It's now resting into the cup, and you can see that I'm barely holding on to the jib with 2 fingers. So all the weight now is taken up by this point and is a lot easier to hold when you have a heavier jib system. So now as I jib down, you can see this becomes my pivot point, and now the rubber tip of the jib rests in here. I can even jib all the way down to the ground and do some low swish shots, but you will find that in the lower positions you will have to hold the jib a little harder into the support cup. As you jib up, the weight shifts higher and more into the support and becomes easier to manage. And I'm watching my monitor here while I'm doing it, because this optional monitor becomes great now that I'm in this mode and I'm very high, and I can now control my jib and get these really nice high shots. And I can come down and jib down, and all my weight is now resting in this pole support. So I don't have to worry about keeping it on my belt. And now I've got these great shots that you can do, and it operates a little bit easier, especially if you're beginning, or if you have a heavier camera on. You'll find this pole support works very nicely. Okay, this accessory, my Cool Zoom, or again any zoom control depending upon what camera you're using, normally I would mount right here, right above my hand grip. When it's resting here, and I got my hand here, my thumb now has easy control of zoom, record, on, off, and all you have to do is run the cable up the pole, just like you did your video cable. And this camera that I'm working with here does not accept the zoom control. However, most camcorders will have, the Sony or the Canon camcorders will have a plug that you can plug this into. But this is just showing you the option you can use with a lot of your cameras. And when you're operating in steady mode up here, you can move your zoom control to right here. That way, as you're walking with it, again, you've got under your thumb your zoom and records pause function.